Okay, we're going live on YouTube. If everyone could be quiet now. Okay, whenever you're ready to begin, we're live.
Okay, being 6:30, I'll call the facility special call meeting to order as published. Let the roll call show all members are present, plus a lot of other people. So welcome to this meeting. I want to make a comment before we actually get into full discussion. In the last couple of weeks, I've had quite a few emails, some texts, personal conversations with people. And I think there's a misconception out there is the fact how the process works. And I call it the process because this is how things get done at the county level. We have our ideas, they come through the committees forward them up to the county board. At the county board, they're brought up and they're discussed in favor of and in favor against. And after all discussions, then they're voted on by the 29 member of the county board. So it isn't as if 1 or 2 or 5 people are actually controlling all this stuff. It's all settled at the county board. There are 29 seats on the board. And when there's a ordinance or resolution, it's voted upon by the 29 members. Now, I know there are some people out there that didn't understand that that's all how it all goes. And I just want to make sure that I go on record as to say that is how the process works. Because I've had comments said to me that, well, so-and-so is doing this and they're running the whole show, or so-and-so is doing that. No, the final, at the end of the day, is the 29 county board members that vote on whatever the topic is. We have input from all the staff members, the county manager, the department heads, CFOs, people that we have hired to give us their advice. But the bottom line is it all goes down to or back to the 29 members on the county board. Because like I said, I've had people tell me that, well, you guys don't have any say, so-and-so runs the show or this or that. No, it's the 29 county board members that vote on. Sometimes when the votes come through, it's the yeses that I have voted for, or sometimes no, it goes against what I have voted. But it's the process. And as long as everything always goes through the process, if anybody has any complaints, it's with the county board. That's where the bottom line stops. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that it's the county board that makes the final decision. So having said that, then I'll bring the topic, the consideration of reports, resolutions, ordinances recommended to the Dunn County Board, resolution amending glasses, number 2021-14 regarding Red Cedar Racer. And because there was only one topic on here, at this time, I will take public comments as far as what if the public has anything they want to say at this time. Does anybody want to have? Yeah.
Larry Bjork, box out of Springfield. I've been amazed at how much discussion this has brought up, and I've encouraged the committee to be much more liberal with their number of people that attend the races. I feel that the racing history in Dunn County has been a long one that's had generations of people that have followed in their dads and grandpas' footsteps in racing in Dunn County, and it's become a tradition. And I think we should do everything we can to maintain that tradition. The tradition of the noise on Friday night, is also there. We can't deny that. the COVID added a whole new element to Friday night racing and the congregation of people. But I think it's time that we give the rec park activities back to the members of the community, Dunn County and the area. The racing is just not the only function that goes on at the rec park. And sometimes you have to let people make their choices that some people would call risky. And others would say, I'm willing to take the risk. We've all heard time and time again how you can eliminate the risk to yourself by wearing a mask, spacing between each other, having the COVID part of your pocket that says you've had shots. If you're willing to do what it takes to protect yourself, and you're willing to take that risk, it doesn't seem to me that it's correct, that it's right, that county's officials would not allow you to participate in a long tradition activity at the county rec park. So I would like to see it wide open, but I would be happy to. Whatever you choose is fine with me. It's been disappointing for me personally.
Yeah.
Sure. Please
Um,
identify yourself.
Yes, Jimmy Mars, I'm a board member at Red Cedar Speedway, business owner in Dunn County, lifelong county resident. Just want to say I appreciate speaking with Katie, working through this whole situation. That's not a fun time in our lives for sure, but working with us, everybody that has, and getting with us today, and going through some numbers that we're looking. Obviously, Red Cedar Speedway would like to be running at full capacity, and we have a lot of really exciting things planned. However, we understand what has went through and what we went through last year, and try to open up with a responsible way of as everything else has been opening up with the vaccination occurring and people understanding this whole pandemic of what we're at. I'm definitely happy with the vaccination. Everybody is. There's a lot of people I know that participate in getting it. I hope more people are getting it. But I also, this is a work in progress, and we're definitely restricted. Today we talked more about how to open our business up to the public and to business owners, get back to business, and eventually we want to be at 100% on what we're doing. So, you know, we got to look at this as always moving in a positive way. And obviously the easiest thing to do is to be really restrictive. But as we work through this and we talked with PD and we try to come up with creative ideas, I just hope that some of the restrictions that were on it, that we talked about today, are possibly, you know, taken off a little bit, limited, not have as many restriction, or just look at the numbers so that we can resume, have some kind of normalcy, especially with the vaccination. So, you know, I think all of us are a part of Dunn County. We're all proud of Dunn County, or otherwise we want to be here. And I feel like if we can look at this on every aspect, from people's health, people's businesses, people that support the racing, businesses that support the races and move forward in a positive manner. I think that's a huge thing, and I think that that's what we all want to do. So I think we all got to move forward with an open mind. That's my opinion. Thank you.
You wanna dwell on the same
I
topic?
just want to add on a little bit, yeah.
I don't need to, just one minute.
John Johnson, been a Dunn County resident all my life. Like Jimmy was saying, same thing. I just want to point out that our board sat down for a long time together and we worked with the county over originally trying to open last year. And I think we all feel we want to maintain the safety first and foremost. I just want everybody to understand that we went through a lot of time, a lot of planning, a lot of preparation before we even opened for practice or before any of this even started. We have a really, what we feel, comprehensive safety plan to try to keep numbers low in Dunn County and to keep the spread from happening, especially at our racetrack. Hand sanitizers, we have sneeze guards everywhere, signage all over the place, extra soap, masks everywhere. We're doing everything we possibly, announcements over our intercom to the fans and the drivers, and no contact stuff, even right down to our food and just stuff like that. It's all individually packaged. Just wanted everybody to understand just the steps that we try to go through to try to maintain safety, as well as us trying to have a successful business or season, with healthy fans. That's all I
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, yes,
Can I make a comment? I just wanted to.
identify yourself.
Oh, sorry. Deb Allison, with the Dunn County Fair Board. And I talked to the facilities committee last month at the meeting about Clay County Fair in Florida. And I just wanted to remind you of some of the numbers that they had there and the events that they had. For anybody that knows the fair industry, fairs run January, February, March, into April, in the southern part of the country usually, and then they pick up again in the fall. And those people move north then to, so it's not so hot. But Clay County Fair was shuttered last year, and they came back this year, extended their fair for 1 day longer, so they have an 11-day fair. They ended up having 148,000 people in attendance during those 11 days. There was 30 possible cases of COVID that were potentially linked to the fair, but they're not 100% sure. So you figure that's a pretty small percentage of cases to fans. Masks were not required, they were recommended. They had extra sanitizer, extra, all the other protocols there. They have an arena there. They had 15,269 people attend the fight, the UFC fight. That one night, which shattered any record that they've ever had in that building before. Overwhelming response from the community. The governor of Florida was there, the mayor of Jacksonville. I mean, it's huge. And we're hearing this from fairs all over the state of Florida. I just picked this one because I've talked to these people in Florida and how they're operating and anticipating what we can do to bring our fair to have our full fair this year. And we're very much on the same page. But I think at this point of the game, we are at the point where people are making choices. They can choose to be vaccinated. The vaccine is readily available for anybody. There's walk-in clinics all over the place. They can choose to wear a mask. They can choose not to wear a mask. They can choose to stay home if they don't feel comfortable. But I think we're at the point that we have to open up. We can't continue on like we are right now with 100 people up there, 50 others. To be honest, they when that came out. And I urge you to really get behind and support.
Mr. Chair, just a quick one if I may.
Yes.
Mike Kinnear, N6940, 30th Street, Maryland. I particularly like the vaccination section of the proposal. If somebody goes out and gets the vaccine, to me, that's a pretext. Piggybacking on what Deb said as far as it's time to move a little bit, I really like that, and I encourage you to keep with that. Consider the vaccination as a key element in anything that you do. Thank you.
Okay, so, you were all handed out a copy here that just came out this afternoon, in the meeting that, was talked about, earlier today that took place between Dunn County, KT, and the Racing Association. And we come up with, some different proposals as far as changing what the current, resolution says and going forward with these changes. I don't know if you had time to actually look at it, study it enough to be able to ask any questions. So if you need more definition. Yeah, Mike,
Can we have KT kind of
that was going to be my next, if nobody had any questions. KT, would you please, in detail, describe what the changes that we have made here?
Sure, so what you guys have in front of you is an amended work product from, the meeting that we had this afternoon. You'll recognize that what's in white and black is what was passed by the county board back in February. And so that is, a percentage of the grandstand open based on our 7-day COVID activity in Dunn County in our average case rate. So what the work session did was make 3 important amendments. One, in conversation, there was never an intention to have less than outdoor gathering recommendations in the grandstand. So regardless of what the health department I put forward as outdoor gathering recommendations, there should never be less than that allowed in the grandstand. And as a reminder, this is in addition to the folks that are in the pits, which is approximately 200 to 250 people. So for outdoor gatherings right now, as Deb has shared, that's at 100 for outside. We are still at a high rate of transmission with about 3 out of 10 people here in Dunn County vaccinated. So if you look at, so that's the first important amendment. And then the second important amendment is to support the conversation about not including people that are fully vaccinated in that total. So if they were allowed last weekend to have 366 people in the grandstand, if they had another 300 vaccinated people, that wouldn't go towards that number. So it would be in addition to. You can see that at the bottom of the grid, people voluntarily providing proof of vaccination and tickets in addition to, and above the maximum permitted grandstand, as indicated by the 7-day average after review and verification by RCRA representatives. And then the third conversation, and pointing to this page, is finding that spot where we can have outdoor gatherings with physical space between groups and still having case rates small enough that we aren't over that tipping point of super spreading events. And so at twice the current cases per week for Dunn County, so 22.68 is our current recommendation. That's what the board put forward last February. So it's double that. At 45 cases in a week, they could have 25% of their grandstand, in addition to any vaccinated people that care to voluntarily provide documentation on that. At 35% grandstand, we're looking at 36 cases in a week for Dunn County. For 50% of grandstand, 27 cases or less per week, 27.6. For 60%, 22.6. That's where we would have been last week. For 75% of that grandstand, that is 18 cases in a week for Dunn County, and for 100% of grandstand, that's 9 cases, 9.1 cases. Where we are in the last 7 days is 22 cases. That would put us at 60%. I think it's 22.6. 2.4. I'll have to look at that, but, so that kind of gives you some context as to where we are currently. Some context as to, the three, amendments to the resolution that our work session put forward as something the race association is agreeable to, that I'm agreeable to. We think it's a good meeting in the middle to get people out to the races and still keep them safe. Any questions?
No, that's basically what came out of the meeting today.
So how did you come with the proposal of times two?
Sure.
Mark Thomas, 714 Northport, Menominee. 30+ year resident. of Menominee. So that number came about based on the fact that when we first proposed this style of a grid as an opportunity or as a potential opportunity to work towards getting the grandstands open. Our numbers were 7 times higher than what this grid is all about. Okay, that's what we proposed. We proposed it in a meeting much like we had today with KT and other chairs from other committees and manager Paul Miller, et cetera. And in fairness, the county wanted to take a look at that, see what that looked like, and it came back with these numbers, okay, that we're currently operating under. So how we came up with ×2 is that today in our conversation, our work meeting, we actually asked for ×3, and that was not to take words out of your mouth, but that was uncomfortable. Okay, at this point in time, so then we asked for ×2, and that's where we are.
Sure.
Sum it up.
So if I can expand on that,
Yeah.
so the 7 times the limit currently would put it at December rates of transmission. So during December, the kinds of cases per day would actually lead to a super spreading event. At 3 times what's currently here versus the 2 times, that's about 9 cases a day for 7 days in a week. Again, that's a pretty high case rate, and it's really on that edge of, I have to bring more staff in, there's real concern about that getting out of hand because we can't contract it. At 6 cases a day for 7 days in the week, I feel like that's a middle ground. That's something that's a little more than I'm comfortable with, but I think that we can give it a shot. I think my staff can handle it. I think we can do the contact tracing so that we don't have large spread or scale spread.
Yes.
So I was looking at Paul Miller's COVID-19 report. They just wrote some numbers down from at the beginning of the year. We had 187 active cases, 255 probable cases, and we were like 3,500 confirmed cases. So what I'd like to know is, our active cases are going down, our probable cases are going up, but our confirmed cases are kind of the same. They're always the same. Like 1 week it's 46, next time it's 19, then 46, then 25 and 30. I just like to know what probable and actual.
Sure, so let me try to explain. So we try to give the county an update on cases. So we provide our confirmed cases, which are cases that have been confirmed by a PCR test. So the genetic material has been detected in a spot. The probable cases are antigen positive cases, so it's a quick test. It's less reliable than a PCR, but still with symptoms, it meets the threshold for CDC. We don't add them in because they aren't as reliable as PCR, regularly being contacted by our contact tracers, and the vast majority of them are within 10 days to 14 days since exposure. I'm sorry, since onset. And then, was there a third part to that question? I'm sorry, Supervisor?
Yeah, just, you have, like the confirmed cases and then the active, I guess it's a question, I just wrote the numbers down. It's kind of seeing that there's more probable cases coming up than the active cases are going down. And it seems like the confirmed cases are, they just kind of go up and down.
So the confirmed cases are going up more gradually, and you can see that in our new cases each day. So right now, we're averaging about three to five cases a day, depending on the day. And so that's a real gradual uptick. You can see that active cases are how many we got in the last 7 and last 30 days.
Okay.
So you're right, we are seeing a reduction in active cases, because we have less cases now than we did in January,
Oh,
each day.
40.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Comment?
You said comments now, so I'll make a comment.
Okay,
I want to commend KT for working with this. I sat down with the old spreadsheet that you had. And I went through the numbers, based off of what was cut, because at the little bottom corner of this, you had the burden of case proof from the state of Wisconsin. I went through these numbers and tried to apply them in here to what you had, and I found that they were pretty darn disparate. And I want to commend you, because now when I look at, because I went through and I worked all these numbers based off of what was here for the state of Wisconsin. And you are now spot on with what I came up with my calculations. And that was before I ever saw this. So I thought that we were very restrictive to the racing community in regards to what we were doing before, but because, and I kind of thought that when we were talking about this, when we were putting this through, when I said, okay, based off of the number of cases today, how many people could we have in the stands? And you had said, based off a 3 point whatever we had at the time, they would be allowed 25%. I thought that was pretty strict. Especially seeing as that we're at an outdoor event. We know now from the CDC that it is less likely to spread COVID outdoors than it is in the indoor environment. We have this agreement with the Red Cedar Racing Association that we're going to separate people in the grandstands. We're going to keep them apart. You know, if they came as a family, that they could sit together, but we keep them apart. They wear masks, we have hand sanitizers, they have sneeze shields. They have all this stuff put in place. Let them race. Let them have fans. They have loyal fans that come and watch and follow these guys. Mark, Jimmy, and all these other guys. And they want to come and sit in the stands, and I think they should. And based off of this, I really commend you for coming up with this, because I wrote all my numbers on this sheet right here and they're right on point with what I get. So thank you.
okay. Any other discussions, comments? Yeah. Who's on it?
I'll make it too long.
No. Go ahead.
All right, good evening, everyone. My view on restrictions placed on our economy, our business, our entertainment, and our freedoms bring out a lot of passion when I speak about this. I'm also very concerned about the health and well-being of everyone in the county. I want to start by reading a couple excerpts from the CDC publication over the last few weeks. From the CDC, April 29, 21. Health recommendations for vaccinated people. This is the summary of changes. Guiding principles for fully vaccinated people are now provided. Fully vaccinated people no longer need to wear a mask outdoors, except in certain crowded settings and venues. Clarification that fully vaccinated workers no longer need to be restricted from work following an exposure as long as they are asymptomatic. Fully vaccinated residents of non-healthcare settings no longer need to quarantine following a known exposure. Fully vaccinated asymptomatic people without exposure may be exempt from routine screening testing if feasible. Of course, immune-compromised people need to consult a healthcare provider about these recommendations, even if they are fully vaccinated. From May 10th, from the CDC, from May 10th, 2021, ensuring COVID vaccines work and vaccine effectiveness. All COVID vaccines currently available in the United States are effective at preventing COVID-19 as seen in clinical trial settings. Research provides growing evidence that the COVID-19 vaccine offers similar protection in the real-world conditions. COVID-19 vaccination is an important tool to help stop COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 vaccination helps protect people from getting sick or severely ill with COVID-19 and may also help protect people around them. To receive the most protection, people should receive all recommended doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Some people who are fully vaccinated against COVID will still get sick because no vaccine is 100% effective. Experts continue to monitor and evaluate how often this occurs, how severe their illness is, and how likely a vaccinated person is to spread COVID-19 to others. The CDC recommends you get COVID-19 vaccine as soon as one is available to you. I wish to establish a consensus that the vaccine is effective and prevents the spread of COVID. Of course, nothing is 100% effective, but we know the vaccine works and will reduce the severity of a vaccinated person if they get infected. Why do we feel the need to protect people from themselves? I guess to me, this is the big question. Why do we need to protect people from themselves? This may be a noble idea, but everyone is free to live their life as they feel fit, providing their actions are not illegal or harmful to others. I simplify it somewhat, but I think you get the point. And the point I'm trying to make is we do not need nor should we try to control the way people live their lives. I encourage everyone to get vaccinated. We still live in a free country, and people are still free to choose how to care for their own medical needs. Anyone who chooses not to get a vaccine is making their own choice as to how they choose to protect or not protect themselves and their health. This is their God-given right. If an individual makes the choice not to get the vaccine and not to use the means available to protect themselves from COVID, that is their right and their choice. And we need to accept that as their right. It's not our responsibility to create policies or require others to make sacrifices to protect the health needs of the individuals that choose to remain unvaccinated. So I guess please stop using the argument that we have to protect the unvaccinated. They chose to be unvaccinated. You either force everyone to be vaccinated, which I'm pretty sure would be unconstitutional, or we have to let it go. Many cannot let it go. Because if you agree that every American has the right to choose whether or not to get a vaccine, then the individual becomes responsible for their own decisions. You now have no reason or need to control the interactions of the public. You can only advise the best practice for the public, which we should do. Herd immunity will occur within those who choose not to get vaccinated. Unfortunately, lives may be lost. This sounds cold, but it's really not our choice how they decide to exercise their rights. You can't protect everyone from themselves. As far as for race, When we first discussed the county's involvement in dictating how racing conducts their business, and reasoning from the health department and manager was, we had to protect the elderly, the compromised family members, and the people that were attending the races. Racing is a chosen destination activity. People willingly attend. No one is required to go to the races. Everyone attending has accepted any personal health risk by attending. The health department's main argument last year was that someone going to the races could become infected and return home to infect an elderly or compromised family member. This reasoning can no longer be justified to prevent those wanting to attend from having that opportunity. Anyone attending that is concerned for their health can stay home or get a vaccine. Any family member in the at-risk group have or should have already been vaccinated, or they decided not to get the vaccine. Anyone else in the public who the racing fan may come in contact with either has received the vaccine or chose not to get the vaccine. If an individual chooses not to get vaccinated, that is their legal right as an American citizen. Whether you agree with their decision or not is really irrelevant, because there could be someone attending the races that is not vaccinated or returning home and coming in contact with someone not vaccinated is also irrelevant in this topic. If you say racing has to be shut down, I strongly believe that you are trying to impose your opinion or your desires onto others. That goes against what I believe is our fundamental right. It's time to let racing take care of racing, and the county worry about getting themselves back up and running to serve the community. I guess that's kind of where I come from. My core belief that the county really has overstepped what we should be dictating for individuals and individuals' rights. Now, in the spirit of compromise, I also read through what Tim had put out here in the proposed after clarification chart. I believe you did this a couple of weeks ago, is that correct?
I did.
And I'd like to, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
just take right from you. It was so darn good that I was just really impressed. Now, this chart is a little different than the one that we have in front of us from the health department. I still believe that we're just being a little too restrictive with saying that 9 cases per week prevents them from opening up. It just seems ridiculous to me. Whereas this other chart is based on 1 case for full capacity of cases per 10,000 per day. And I kind of think that original chart missed the point where it should be per day per week, not per week. So instead of that number, we should be looking at this third line down, cases per 10,000 per day, where it's up to 1 case per 10,000 per day would allow them 100% capacity. If we're up to 3 cases per 10,000 per day, at 75%, up to 5, or up to 10 for 25% capacity. This then allows for racing to operate at full capacity with 31 cases, which in the current situation, they would not be able to race at full capacity, but they would be able to race at 75% capacity with the 30. I thought it was 30. I guess the numbers are a little higher now, so it's in the 40s. But the fluctuation from, as Ron said, from the 20s up through 45, 50 seems to be this number that we're operating at. And the number we're operating at now certainly should not be restrictive on racing when it's an outdoor activity. I know you can't use what other, because the guy told me this, because somebody else's kids did something wrong doesn't mean you should let your kids do something wrong. But all of the racetracks, including county-owned racetracks in the state, are all open. I believe, I may be mistaken, all of the racetracks to speak of are open in the state of Wisconsin. Is that true? Are there some, most, all of them are open in the state of Wisconsin, correct? Correct. So I think it's time I'm for opening up, don't get me wrong. But in the spirit of compromise, I think this other chart certainly provides some ample opportunity for them to raise. And I would be actually in favor of providing or proposing two options. One, to take to the county board that allows racing to open up. And another one to allow them to open up on this modified chart versus this really restricted chart that the health department has put up. And I understand you do a great job, and I don't question that. And your job is to be concerned about the health of the county. And you're going to be more conservative than some. And there's also an economic issue that nobody's talking about. There's, I believe, the letter from the mayor of Menominee referred to $2.6 million in revenue that is brought in by racing through the local businesses. You know, these roads don't build themselves. If we continue to restrict businesses from operating and making money and paying taxes, how are we going to pay for the other aspects of county and city? So that's where I stand on the issue with racing and the issue on opening up in general. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yeah.
Now, the only thing I can say is that, you know, it's hard for me to vote against anything or vote for anything that is not recommended by our health department. That means we're going against the science. And I just couldn't vote for anything that even if you chart is with some reluctance, I think, on the part of the health department. And I certainly wouldn't want to be relaxed anymore.
Okay. Any other comments from board members? Any other discussion on this? Yeah. You certainly, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why we're here. That's the action item on here. And so, yeah, you can make a motion, depending upon if it's seconded, then we'll have further discussion. So, yeah, by all means.
So I would like to make a motion that we move on to the county board option A, which is this chart that I handed out with that restriction based on cases. That's the C step. I'd like to make a motion that we move on two options to the county board and allow them to make the choice between the two. The first option would be this chart here, as far as the restrictions in place of the chart that was provided here. The second option, option B, I would like to propose that we allow races to open up and to police themselves.
Would you define open up?
To allow 100%
Okay.
capacity with them taking on the responsibility of the safety protocol required. And they have that, they currently have safety
They have
impact.
procedures. So a motion's been made. So actually, you made two.
I mean, a motion.
One motion with two options. I'm gonna ask a little help on here. Can a person have two options to one motion, or does it need to be two motions?
Well, to open up racing, one way you could do that is by completely rescinding the previous resolution. That would take away all of the other parameter or all the other terms that were in there that aren't addressed specifically to grandstand capacity. For example, it includes requirements that the racing association, exercise distancing and have hand sanitizer and only sell beverages out of the west window, things like that. So, I mean, that's always an alternative. I've never had this come up as two alternatives, so pardon me while I ponder this a moment. Is the table that Supervisor Rogers is referring to, is that the one that is the product of the meeting that was held this afternoon, or is that a different one? Okay.
Different one.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that one. There, thank you, Supervisor Score. He held it up to the camera. The two actions are inconsistent with each other, and so I think the best course of action that I would recommend is that you advance the modification to the table, the maximum capacity chart, and then it could be subject to amendment on the county floor to eliminate numerical restrictions. If there's a motion made and it's seconded and it passes by a vote to modify the chart so that there aren't any numerical restrictions on grandstand attendance, I think it would achieve either goal. And so in other words, if you just brought up the modified chart, which I'll probably run downstairs here pretty soon and try and get it just so I can see what's in it. But if you brought that up and with the intent of inserting it into the protocols or the SOP that was developed by the Racing Association, which they proposed to the county, then you can amend it. You can amend it by eliminating the numerical requirements that are in it. In a sense, you have both options available to you.
Okay.
We state the motion.
Okay,
for clarification.
Well, let me send you first one.
The problem with doing it the other way around is it's really hard to amend a motion to use Supervisor Rogers' words, to open it up. And then if the will of the body is to, if the will of the county board is to have some terms and conditions and parameters in there, it's a lot harder to. Thank you, John. If anybody's wondering where John Swirsky is, it's a lot harder to amend it to include a lot of extra information than it is to amend it to take it out. So that's why I recommend that.
I would send the motion I can.
Okay.
And I would make a motion to remove the chart that's on this sheet here that was handed out and replace it with this chart here. So replace the permitted maximum permitted grandstand chart with the proposed after clarification chart.
And before you get too far into discussion, this chart, this chart was prepared, I think, early on in our discussions, and it was actually amended to include 35% capacity and 60% capacity as additional columns in the chart.
Yes.
And so this does take, I mean, there was, in our discussion this afternoon, there was more information that was included in the sort of the agreement for proposal that we reached, including vaccinated persons being admitted, the minimum grandstand was going to be indexed to the outdoor gathering recommendation, which as of today is 100. So the minimum would no longer be 0. So there are some, I guess, if you're going to insert this in there may need to be some additional work if we want to bring some of this other stuff back into it.
If we just replace that chart with this chart, everything that we discussed stays the same. It just is a little more lenient on the restrictions.
So,
Actually, if I may,
Yes, please.
I don't have that one chart that you handed out in front of me looking at it, but when I checked numbers, they were very consistent with what was on here. There was actually more information, like Nick was referring to, there was actually more information. You know, when I put my numbers together and I sent that email,
Yes.
I actually had the numbers broken out on my piece of paper. And when I looked at the numbers from my piece of paper to this new one that came out today that was agreed to by KT and the Racing Association, my numbers correspond down to the letter. If I could just kind of, if I could just kind of go through this.
And hers are per week.
No, there's daily and weekly numbers on it. If you look at this, my numbers of cases per day for Dunn County are 6.48 under the 25%. Her numbers on her spreadsheet now are 6.48 per day, which translate to 14.3, or excuse me, 45.36 cases per week, which is what she has on hers, 45.36 cases per week.
You have that cases per day for Dunn County. She has it
Yeah.
cases per week.
Well, then I misspoke in the email that I sent out because I wrote them all down before I sent my email. And my numbers on mine that I put together
are spot on now with what KT has on her sheet.
So, but if you go up to the number you were just saying, the 45.4,
45.36, yeah, 45.4.
that's cases per day for Dunn County. It's 45,
That's cases per week.
that's cases per day for the week. Or that's cases per day for Dunn County. That's 45 cases per day.
No, that doesn't make sense.
No.
Because 45 cases per day would be, throw this thing way out the window. It's 45 cases per week
Well, this
is what
one,
it should be.
with my numbers, there was 30 cases, so you would have 75% capacity. Because it's not above 35, it was 30.
Correct.
And then with this one here, with 30 per day. Per week. It would be less than that.
It'd be a 35.
My recollection is, I actually think that this chart here contained an error in that the cases per day and the cases per week were switched around. That was one of the things that was corrected. This is a really early draft of the chart. And if you switch the cases per day and cases per week in this chart, they actually correspond to figures that are in this chart. And so at the 100% level, it corresponds to the current figure. But for some of the other levels, they are the same as what's been proposed as a change. For example, the Racing Association proposed to sort of double the current cases per week threshold. In the paper chart that John Swirsky brought up to me, 45.4 cases is shown in cases per day, but again, that should be per week.
You are correct. I agree with you, Nick. Where you have cases per day in Dunn County on your chart. Actually, if you change that to cases per week, and you look at the cases per week on that chart, and the cases per week on the new chart that was sent out, they're virtually identical.
Then I would question that currently we're at that close around that 40 cases per week. And it seems.
Yeah, I just don't understand the math in this one. I know there was an error in here somewhere. That might not be what it was, because the cases per day times 7 equals the number, roughly equals the numbers in the cases per week.
Yeah, so if you take the 45.36 and you divide that by 7, you get 6.48 cases per day.
It seems that 40 cases per week, they ought to be able to operate higher than 25%. That seems like it's pretty low. If we're averaging in that neighborhood, and that reduces it down to 25%. Realistically, it seems that we should be at that 60 to 75% at that 45 cases per week.
Can I clarify that currently we're about 22 to 25 cases? Not 45.
Not 45, so that number was.
Well, that number was on the old, according to the old chart that we passed back before. That was way restricted. So based off of that, we could only have 25% capacity on the old chart. This chart replaces that old chart, and at 25, at that number of cases per day, now the grandstands could be at 60% capacity.
So I know we need to deal with your motion before I can. vote. So we'll deal with your motion.
I probably just goofed everything up. I don't know. I know there was something in this chart that was not right, but I can't remember what it was. And I just don't know.
If you wish.
If you wish.
Well, I don't really wish.
9 point.
Let's skip it.
Okay, a motion's been made. And I want to make sure I truly understand, does the other verbiage as far as what the policy of what the reasons that they would do apply also to your motion using this for the numbers, but would they still be doing all the other policies that they said that they would do?
That are on this sheet here. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
As far as because they said they would do this, and this, right? So I want to make, right, okay, we'll term it their previous protocol. So a motion's been made to accept this chart instead of this chart and include all the existing protocol that the Racing Association has put forth at this time. Is there a second to that motion? The motion has been made and seconded to replace this chart with this chart with the existing protocol. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye.
Aye.
Motion fails. So that motion is no longer on the table, on the floor. Do I hear another motion?
I will make a motion. I move that we accept this new recommendation from KP Gallagher for allowing Red Cedar Racing to expand the capacity based off of these new numbers on this.
With the existing protocol.
With all the information associated with this.
Right.
All the information that's on.
And also the other protocols that they're going to do in place. I want to make sure that we don't lose any of the existing protocols.
Correct.
Okay,
That's it. I don't want to touch that other stuff. We
right,
just had this information in what we proposed before. And I'm making a motion that we replace what was on here with what's on here.
okay, and
And
that,
that keeps in place all the other things about the
Okay.
masks and social distancing and hand sanitizer and
Correct.
food and everything else that's associated with that. All that stuff stays the
And-
same. We're just replacing this old chart and information with this new chart and information.
okay, I just want to make sure that we're consistent with what we're doing. Okay, a motion has been made to replace it with this this chart with existing protocol. Is there a second to that motion? Don seconded, the motion has been made and seconded to replace the charts. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, I got it. Yes, Mr. Miller?
If I may offer to the maker of the motion, Supervisor Niehoff, one change, it's a friendly change. I discussed with Corporation Counsel after we sat down with Red Cedar this afternoon, and he actually suggested that we include as yet one other amendment to the resolution, the original resolution, that any further changes to the conditions under which Red Cedar operates this season may be decided by unanimous act or a majority action of the facilities committee without a need to return the resolution yet again to the county board. What I'm anticipating is that there may come a time yet this season when our rate drops even further and the public health director is comfortable in changing
again those number of current cases per week, or adding other relaxations of these standards. And rather than going through the whole, now it's got to go from the facilities committee to executive committee to the county board, that the motion, including the resolution, that further changes may be by action of the facilities committee. I consider that a friendly amendment, but I offer that for your consideration, Supervisor Niehoff.
Thank you, County Manager Paul Miller. It says I will add that to my motion.
And is that okay with the second as well?
I will amend my motion to include the recommendation of County Manager Miller.
You want to check with the second as well to see if they're okay with that.
Is there a second to that motion or the amendment to the original motion? You seconded it?
The motion to amend it.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to amend the replacement of this chart. Any further discussion on that?
We're just discussing the amendment to add the facilities to make the
Yes, we're discussing that right now.
only that.
Only that. If not, those in favor of adding that amendment on there, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? When no, okay, motion passed. So now we're back to the original one with the amended version. Discussion.
So I would kind of take this viewpoint, which I struggle with because I think it's way more restrictive than what we should be. It's my understanding racing really wanted that multiplier to be higher than 2. I believe that multiplier of 2 is very restrictive, and I think it's absolutely feasible that that multiplier could be 3. And that would make me feel a little bit better because then that number gets us at 50% with that closer to 40, at least gets us to 50% capacity in the stands. Personally, I think it's way too low. I struggle with that, but I would like to make the motion that we amend the motion and change the proposed 2 times to a proposed 3 times. It doesn't change the scope of it that much, but it does allow a little bit more freedom of occupancy.
Okay, a motion has been made to amend the amended motion, changing it from 2 times to 3 times. Is there a second to that? Again, I ask, is there a second to the motion? Motion has been made and seconded to amend the motion to change it from 2 times to 3 times. The current cases per week. Any more discussion? No.
Only thing I can say is that he was uncomfortable with 2. I don't think 3 is something I don't think our people want. So I can't vote for it.
Any more discussion?
The discussion I'd like to have is, I think it might be a little premature to do that at this time. If we change to the 2 times, with the amendment that we can then change it in the future by a majority vote of the facilities committee, I think we might be better off tabling that. If we pass this and we get the amendment, then if we want to change it to 3 times in the future, we can do that simply by the majority of the facilities committee and not have to have that go to the whole council. So I think we might be jumping the gun a little bit by trying to modify this to 3 times and get the whole county board to approve that, because this is what KT recommends.
My response would be, for me, it's not really jumping back because it's way too restrictive. But my question to you then would be, why not take the reverse approach and say reasonable, we have that would be amended effect. Just throw it down.
Good point.
That's why we have discussion.
That's right.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to amend this, to change it to 3 times instead of the 2 times. The motion's been made and seconded. We have had discussion. So all in favor of the motion to increase it to 3, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion failed. So now we're back to the original amended motion of using this chart with the amendment onto where in the future changes could be made at the facilities level. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, so this will be moved on to the exec committee, and then it'll be moved on to the county board. And when the exec will just review it. I mean, they won't do any voting and anything, but it'll all come before the county board at the next county board meeting for discussion and voting. Being that is the only action item on the agenda this evening, this meeting is hereby.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So everything you just voted on includes the, as of right now, we're not at 0, we'll be at 100. Taking out the blue line that's crossed out, right? The program stand, %. So this whole chart, I was concerned this was all.
No,
So the whole, everything in blue. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, some of it is a deletion and some of it is an insertion.
Yep, yep. Just wanted to clear.
So vaccinated people will not eligible.
Right.
okay, therefore the meeting, oh, Don,
Can I make a comment or a suggestion?
sure.
You know, the line of Braves and the St. Paul Saints, yeah. They're giving shots right at the entryway to their stadium. In fact, I was wondering, since we got such a low vaccination rate in this county, I was wondering if the health department and the Greasy Association want to work together and give shots on Friday nights at the stadium. In fact, the Atlanta Braves go so far as when somebody gets a shot, they get a free ticket for another baseball game. Just something I'd like to throw out.
Okay, well, that's something they can discuss.
Yeah.
We have had brief discussion along the lines as far as offering ticket opportunities, it's free or reduced cost for vaccination. Not all the time, but you know, you can't afford to do it every week. But to promote.
Just a thought, so.
Do have one question. As far as the vaccination, is this something that for this Friday, it has to remain as.
Actually, right now, I hope this hasn't.
Yeah. I just didn't know about the vaccination thing.
It
That
has-
needs to wait on approval by the county board before we can even pull that trigger.
But I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
um,
You can get the vaccine yourself now.
If you're willing to wait until 9:30 to get KT's report on Wednesday next week, you may have a different grandstand allowance than if you go by the 5:30 figures. The county board meeting starts at 7.
Did you catch that?
No.
It says, he said, the Red Sea Racing Association usually calls in to KP at 5:30 on Wednesdays. The county board meeting starts at 7, so if you wait till after 9 to get that report, it could make a difference in what your grandstand capacity will be next week.
Yeah, if the county board adopts these changes, it's going to have an impact on your you know, on your Friday race planning. You'll just know about it sooner. You'd be able to find out about it on Thursday if you want, but it's more fun to find out about it on Wednesday night, I think. That's all.
As far as the vaccination goes, I'm assuming that if it's a 2-shot, the minute you get your second shot, you'll be eligible to go. Yeah, you can start, and just to simplify, is that what you decided? As long as you have fire, yeah, okay, or the 1 shot if it's the, okay, great.
Okay, anything else? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you for attending.